Well, let's go back to the recycling, because that's what we were talking about. Many people want to consider, benefits of recycling and how it's inevitable. We have to do it all together, this and that, and it's all valid. I have to say, it's all valid. However, when you look at the picture in a wider sense, when you look at the world that we live in, people, populations, the environment, etc., it's very similar to a place where you have some things that are useful, some things that are not, that are going useless. Much like a recycled, or not recycled, but a trash heap, a dump yard. So, because you mentioned about Ajahn Chahalo's mentioning of why there haven't been nuclear bombs exploding or people dying because of the enormity of such weapons and the preponderance of them, is because the presence of enlightened beings and other beings who are looking out and trying to be, while being present, is I support that, because it's valid information. Now, the other thing, the reason why I mentioned the recycling bit is because, like the the dump yard or the junkyard, that no longer serves a purpose. And like, you cannot take an empty bottle that's dirty and feed your family members with it. You have to change it. You have to process it somehow, cleanse it, destroy it in order for you to rebuild it. If you do not have the arahants, if you do not have enlightened beings on this planet would be completely recycled, thrown into the shredder, because it's useless. The caliber of beings that we are producing, the self-centered, egomaniacal, family destroying, society destroying, organizations that have been going on to kill, to destroy individuality, to destroy the very glue of love and compassion and kindness towards each other. And that includes communism, that includes feminism in its recent phases of separation, this whole Me Too generation thing, and people becoming dishonest with their intentions, people removing their roots from the ground and expecting themselves to somehow become higher beings by letting go of certain inherent values that's necessary for a human being to really come to a fruition. They actually will have an impact. They will go ahead and get the world to the state that we find it in. So I find it sometimes ironic and even grotesque, seeing how we look at the planet and point fingers and saying, so-and-so leader is not signing. Of course, that's important. Some accord, some agreement, some contract that will take place in about 10 or 20 years, by the way. And we point the finger at them and say, hey, this organization is not doing its best to stop this. Yeah, but it didn't start there. It was going on for about 150 years or more. Industrial revolution has wreaked havoc on this planet and continues to do so. So we got to look not at just that, but at our own roles in this. And I'm not talking about placing your plastic bottles in a certain thing and giving it to the recycle. I'm not talking about just that. I'm talking about far greater extent of involvement that we have, whether we like it or not. And that is about our choices. The choices we make in contributing to this mess. And here is where I was earlier, before the recording started, was mentioning about the generations that come onto the surface of this earth. See, each generation that comes in, it's not just for nomenclature, Generation X, Generation Millennials, Generation Y, or whatever. There is something that's far more significant than a name or certain characteristics. It's far deeper and stronger than that. And that has to do with their karmic leanings, their drives, their commonality in functioning from different lifetimes. So what happens is, and people ask me, who's running this? Who is this God? Who is it? There's no such thing. It's just the process. In Buddhism, it's all about a continuum. It's in biology, it's called emergence. When you look at certain types of amoeba, and you see that it multiplies, and all of a sudden you have this river of different amoeba working together, as if there is a guide, as if there's a captain, as if there is a behind the scenes intelligent design. There's no such thing. And the same thing here. When you have these generations, each one coming in at a different time period, you see the world go into a different wave of experiencing itself. Meaning, some might actually be very beneficial to the environment and to the world at large. And some would be very devastating. So today's generation of, let's say, millennials, it's very self-centered. Very obviously, many people have talked about this and about the sense of entitlement, and they want to change the world without even understanding who they are. They're very focused on their bodies. They're very concerned about themselves. What's happening to me? Now, there is a lack of experience. However, there's a desire to change things around them. So what I'm trying to say is the drive that these different generations come with in this rebirth of theirs is something that is no accident. When they find each other like-minded individuals in the millions, in the hundreds of millions, there's a reason. It's how they have functioned. So they come from different eras, united by the fact that they are born at the same time period and at a certain location in the world. Let's say in the West, or somewhere where there's a little bit more feasibility for them to express these ideologies. And I want to change you. I want you to think like me mentality. So there is that. However, sometimes generations come in that are more destructive in their thinking. And that's when we have usually like wars occur during that time. So, because it becomes very palatable for them, the idea of going to war or destroying someone else. Now, obviously, we have to take this with a grain of salt, because we are talking about individuals. And these are not automatons. These are not robots. So, and because no one really can understand the full extent of the karma, the laws of karma and its fruits, except for Buddha, we have to also take into consideration the fact that each of these individuals within these various different generations that come to the surface of the earth, at one point or another, has the capacity to make choices, to really change oneself and hopefully the rest of the world to the better, their world. So in this generation, if I would talk about this generation, there is a lack of humility, which is one of the normal reactions or one of the normal manifestations of being so obsessed with themselves and what they're capable of doing. And so I just want to mention that in relation to the presence of arahants, anagamins, sakadagamins, and sotapannas in all of their different stages. Yes, I agree with Ajahn Chalo on the presence of such higher beings being a huge, huge factor that this planet has not been destroyed, whether by its own weapons or by some other forces. And there are other forces. So that presence of higher beings is the very glue, is the very let's wait and see statement that powerful beings are waiting to see what happens and to see which part of the seesaw will take more control. And this is as I was mentioning earlier before the recording, we're living in a very, very critical time period. Now, some people might have said, oh, that statement actually, which I just made in the 40s and 50s, 1940s and 50s, perhaps. But looking at your cell phone, looking at the easy access to information, right now you can know what is happening on the other side of the planet, literally, right now. So nothing can, just stay there for quite some time, and then months later we come to know about it. Because we have the tools, that's what I'm trying to say. We have the tools. Now, oftentimes, almost 100% actually, the times, this is being used to influence each other for the good or bad, usually for the bad. Bad in the sense that it is confusing entire planet's population. This is serious, and people are blinded by other things, and that's a normal thing where they, it's like a subterfuge. It's like when you're trying to distract a child, an infant who wants their toy or something, you immediately talk about something else that would interest them to divert their attention. And that is being done on a global level. Major things are happening, and people say, well, yeah, recycling, the global warming, yes, of course it's happening. But it's not just one person's or one group's or one generation's fault. It has been going on with previous generations of leaders, with previous generations, in fact more so with previous ones than the current ones, because you're coming into the tail end. So it's like a whip, it's a bullwhip. If you've ever seen one, it's a bullwhip is like it's made out of leather, it's very tightly coiled, and it has a handle that's, I guess, made out of wood attached to this leather, but the person swings it in a certain manner, but it's a long one. And the leather whip is at its strongest point right at that tip, the other end, and it's very like narrower, and maybe there's like a ball, something there at the end. That is where it hurts the most. But that's not where the momentum occurs. That's not where it's instigated. It's initiated, the movement, the strike. It's instigated, it's initiated within the wrist and the arm and the intention of the person who is doing the action. So right now we might be at the tail end of that bullwhip. And we're looking at that and saying, we have to change, we have to change. Well, the momentum has started. We need to ride this out. However, at the same time, we need to look at recycling, for example, and see that even through that, the dirt and the junk, we can turn some things around. Like I was mentioning about in South America, where in other places, I'm presuming, they are taking in things that can no longer be recycled, like heavy-duty plastics, really complex fibers that cannot be broken down, perhaps, any further. And they are destroying it, they're dismantling it, they're shredding it into pieces, into powder, and then turning it into blocks or bricks for construction. They're grayish, and they're done like in Lego pieces, and you slide it in using something like a mullet or something like a heavy duty but manageable hammer, and anyone can build it. And people, low income environments, are actually having homes for the first time, actual homes, and they can be dismantled too if they want to move. And they don't have to be architects and things to build one, from what I understand. So similarly, even in a generation of any generation, I'm not just talking about this generation, of individuals who are continuing to make mistakes that to the detriment of us all. And it's not just, let's say, millennials, people in their 60s, 70s. You have a lot of those individuals who are continuing to hold on to power with their teeth, not letting go, not wanting, and again, to the detriment of the planet and the future generations of humans and species in general. We can still make a turnaround, and that is why one of the reasons and outcomes, in fact, of the presence of enlightened beings. Because we still have the Dhamma. That's why we still see these enlightened beings coming to this planet. Because, to my knowledge, to my understanding, at least in this part of the galaxy, there's no Dhamma except for this planet. And beings who have made the wish, the desire, the strong desire to attain, to realize, in the presence of good merits to be reborn as a human being, they still have a chance to become enlightened in the physical form, in the physical realm, in the human realm, on this planet and not another planet, in this part of the galaxy, as I said. Why? Because there is still some presence of the Dhamma. In fact, when I say some presence, I mean you can still taste the fruits of it in its entirety. And that's why students become teachers, and they attain for the sake of extending the stay and the presence of the Dhamma on this planet a little bit longer, a little bit longer, a little bit longer. Perhaps there's another human being who's come to this planet just for that. Because not everyone who's born is here to taste Nibbana. They're not. Majority of them are not. Even at the time of the Buddha, even in his own Sangha, only a small portion of beings were there to experience Nibbana. So that puts things in perspective. So the Arahants and the other noble ones are here to support, be taking care of the Dhamma. It's like holding on to a piece of soil that has this beautiful fruit tree in the careful, motherly, fatherly um, way of holding this thing for posterity, so that other generations of beings can also taste it. They too. And that's what we are here for. And it's extremely important for us to come back and to look at our own role in the sustenance of the Dhamma, in our own practice, in our own ways of making choices. And this conversation began, or this giving the talk, began from our mentioning of how we are contributing to the way that the planet is, to the way the planet state is at the moment, starting with, talking about the global warming, all these things, and the craziness that is taking place. You and I have a role in that, and not some group of people who make other choices than we do. No, every single person, the thoughts that we have, the influences that we are under, using the cell phone, for example, we are always being influenced. And the data that is being collected, even when you're looking at something as I wouldn't say trivial, but even the way that you look at your phone, at what you're looking, in which area of your screen you're looking, you're already being recorded with the camera. Not by human beings, but artificial intelligence. And that's how the system is now set up. So they understand and see the response time, they look at reaction time to certain things, and new algorithms are being written as that is going on. Okay. So what can I do? Well, give yourself a timeout. Put the phone down. And just check in with yourself. Look at your choices. Look at your thoughts. Notice how your thoughts are racing or not. Because the speed at which people are going in living out their lives, and the influences or the influencers from outside they're now intermingled. They're mutually inclusive, as if. But what I'm trying to say is they're not supposed to. This is a tool. The cell phone, the social media, all these things are wonderful tools. But they can also strangle us. It could be a wonderful medicine, where you seeing something on the news somewhere else on the planet can allow you to do something, can help you, or to post something online to let me know, to let someone else know this is happening. Something wonderful. When was the last time we actually talked about wonderful things? Oh, on the other side of the planet, there's this thing happening, this wonderful thing happening. That actually increases the level of frequency. More sense of safety is brought in. So this planet is not a safe place to live, unless you bring in more enlightened beings into the mix. They are the glue that keeps the pieces of this planet together from falling apart. And you look at other planets that used to be alive and well. They're dead now. They're trying to resuscitate Mars. Good luck. First, let's fix this before we go ahead and try to resuscitate a dead corpse. That's ego. the person wanting to go somewhere else. The grass is greener on the other side of the field. That's the same mentality. So let's fix here. Let's fix ourselves. Let's fix our intentions, because what you would be bringing into that world, if you were to be successful, is the same gunk, is the same selfishness, it's the same immoral and completely self-centered and harmful way of being, not just thinking. That sooner or later is going to implode on itself and destroy that as well. So we have a chance here. We have a planet that still works in one way or the other, you know. But that's a lot to ask from a regular person, average person walking on the street, because it's a lot of work. What is? Making a choice, thinking differently, which is being influenced by what's in that on that screen of yours. And what that, even if you don't have a cell phone, but you associate with other human beings, well, guess what? They are influenced by that, and you coming into contact with those beings and their mindset and their being itself, their feeling, their expressions, their ways of thought is influencing everyone else. So it's like a virus. You know, when a child is having pink eye at school, the first thing they do is they send them home. The nurse sends them home. Why? Because it's very infectious. Or having the flu. People wear masks or something, or they just, it's the same thing here. So we need to be wise enough to protect ourselves from these negative influencers. So how can I turn this into something pragmatic that someone can use? Just now. Okay, very simple. If you definitely want to watch something on your social media, on your screen, make sure it's something positive. Yes, including a video about a cat jumping up and hitting the wall or something funny. But don't spend the rest of your day looking at cat videos, which I know a lot of people do, which is a waste of life and neurons. So thinking positive in those terms, or put the phone down, just go outside and walk under the rain, maybe. Just, it's still drizzling, you know, and it's not pouring heavily, without an umbrella. Feel the rain on your face. As long as it's not acid rain, you're not standing next to a factory when it's raining. But just exercise common sense. That's what I'm trying to say. But don't be locking yourself in a room or in a cubicle and saying this is it. Go next to your cubicle and ask someone, your colleagues, for example, who never look at you or who never say hello properly, and just say, hi, how are you? And when they give you just, yeah, I'm good, how are you, answer, just ask them again, like, no, I really mean it. And you really need to mean that. And see what that is doing to you and to the other person. But use it with kindly eyes when you're using these statements, these questions. Be fully present there for that person. Even if you're not able to be present for yourself, that can be a doorway for you to become reacquainted with yourself. Simple as that. I'm not asking people to go ahead and sit for 2-3 hours in meditation at this point. Just to reconnect. And sometimes that completely will change not only your day, but others as well. And that's going to infect, this time though, positively, the individuals and the other beings that person whom you asked about their welfare that day will meet. The other people that they're going to come across now during the day are going to get a taste of the wonderful things that just happened between you and them. And I would even dare to say that even their drive through a heavy traffic in the rain is not going to be as painful as it normally is. In fact, it might even be joyful. They might start tapping on their steering wheel, singing to themselves without knowing, without having an actual song going on in the radio, because the radio would be off. Why? Because they're in a jubilant state of mind. They don't know why. But that moment of purity between two human beings, two beings, took place. And that is pure. That is what I understand to be beautiful. And that is the aura, that was the air, that was the environment where the Buddha taught. Because that's what the Buddha talks about when he's, is one of the meanings anyhow, of being non-attached to what is happening to us. Now, I'm not saying the person's life is going to change for the rest of his life simply because you went and said, hey, how are you, how's your day? No. But you actually breathed life. You opened up a window and all the stagnant air is now forced to come out for a while. So what needs to happen is more and more of this humanity being brought in and into your life. And that is how noble ones are actually known for. An enlightened being is someone who is a joy to be around. You like to be around them. They're fun. They change the mood around wherever they are. People like to be next to them, see them, say hi to them. They don't even know why, but they just know something's different in the air when that person is there. So this isn't science fiction. You could experience some of that right now by you looking, if there's nobody around you, no cubicle, hey, look at yourself in the mirror and just smile and say, hey, no matter what, I forgive you, no matter what. And just smile and say, yeah, you're okay. You're okay. And I love you. That's all. And see if you can carry that sense into every day as much as you can. And then see if you can be generous enough to open up a tiny little crack in the window and share some of that joy and sense of forgiveness with others. Including your own goofiness, including when you stub your toe somewhere and you want to go and cuss yourself or be angry at yourself for being so quote-unquote stupid. If you can even forgive yourself for that. As well as those thoughts of not having been good enough in the past, or some mistakes that you've done in the past, that you've hurt other people or harmed other people. Even forgive yourself for those. And don't do them again, ever. So that is how I see recycling. Interesting how we started there, because it's all, to me, it's all organically related. It's interconnected. I mean, if you even look at Paticca the law of the Buddha's law of causal relations, that's what it's talking about. When we start with ignorance and end up all the way at the end with old age, disease and death and lamentation, what is that? It's going through a whole cycle. It's in fact, it doesn't have an end. It's a cycle, it's a circle. So that circle never has a beginning nor an end. It is here between you and me, between the world, between the earth, the weather, the quality of the air, and all this crazy rain that we've been having in Southern California. It's like somebody having a diarrhea. It's like the planet is having a diarrhea. It's not supposed to rain this much. Up north, it was, I think it rained over like 16 or 20 inches in one day. In Northern California, that is not normal. It's damaging. It's devastating. So, yes, you and I have an impact. You and I have a hand in it, as they say in like, detective world, I guess. So, changing your attitude looking carefully at your choices, and going easier on yourself. But being wise enough to realize that even passively sitting there looking at a screen and getting fed all that information, which is toxic, will not go without fruits. And the fruit is what we're seeing around us. I hope that helps.